right. Thanks, Eli, for coming on today to chat to the team about product-led SEO. I've got the book right here in the office. It's a great read. I recommend it for anyone in marketing, digital marketing, wanting to get involved with SEO. I think it's crucial. Yeah, I mean, who did you write the book for? And do you want to give a little bit of an introduction about yourself and where you've come from? I know just Survey Monkey, everywhere else.
Yeah, uh, love it. Thanks for having me. So I really wrote the book for myself. I didn't think anyone would ever buy my book. I certainly didn't think anybody in Australia would want to talk to me about the book. Like none of this was on the plan. I wrote the book because I had a sort of an interesting SEO career where I started in SEO and I always like to say I was like the sewer of the internet. I kind of was. I helped companies that were looking to buy leads connect to people that were very good at generating leads on the internet. And we plugged them all together. So I got to learn SEO by working with these amazing affiliates, and I learned the darker side of SEO. And then from that company, I went over to a startup and I brought the darker side of SEO to the startup. They were cool with that and everything was great. We got all this money and we were building all this traffic using the darker side of SEO. And then we got penalized. And we got penalized. I had to unlearn everything I knew about SEO and started approaching SEO from a much more strategic, tactical position. And then I moved over to SurveyMonkey, where I spent a number of years, and I brought that piece with me, the understanding of how to build strategy. You don't go to companies, and I know there are so many companies out there, huge brands in the world that are doing the darker side of SEO. They're buying links. They're focused on keyword research, keyword stuffing. They're focused on things that probably don't move the needle for larger brands. But with SurveyMonkey, I learned a different way of doing SEO, which is something that what I opened up the book with, which is much more of a diplomatic approach, a strategic approach. There's a right way to do things, and then there's the way that's actually going to get done. And the company's objectives in making revenue and doing well by their shareholders does not necessarily require that you get an A+ on your SEO. It requires that you do a good job and ship good products. And that's where I learned that. And by doing that at SurveyMonkey and really learning how to, again, achieve objectives and drive revenue and build a great SEO channel, I started consulting on the side. And I had this other approach towards SEO, which is a focus on strategy and a focus on the holistic approach to SEO rather than some of the tactical things that we all do anyways. And I started putting that down in words and talking at different companies, and they'd ask where they could learn more. So turned into blog posts, which turned into a book, which again, I thought I was just going to have myself. I was going to, talk to these companies and say, well, this is different. Why are you telling me not to buy links? Where do I learn more about this? And I'd say, here's a PDF pamphlet that I wrote, all hundreds of pages, and that turned into a book. And even once it turned into a book, again, I still never thought a lot of people would buy it, but been, so honored that so many people are interested in it and sold thousands of copies. People talk about it and ask about it. And, really, it did something I never expected, which is change the conversation in SEO, that this is a meaningful channel. There's someone I'm working with right now. She says that everyone just considers her to be a hacker because she's the keyword nerd, because she does SEO. And that's the way many people approach SEO, and that's not accurate. When I was at SurveyMonkey, our SEO channel drove $200 million a year in revenue. I think it's like $500 million a year in Australian dollars. No, I was kidding. $200 million a year in revenue. That's a meaningful channel. That was the most meaningful channel we had in the entire company. And that would be wrong if they just considered me and my team to be keyword nerds and all that. So this is a valuable channel. And I think everyone in SEO does something valuable. And I'm happy that accidentally my book is changing the conversation about what this could be.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, back to your point about big brands investing in SEO, how do you get big brands to invest more in SEO? Do you offer forecasting for executives, forecasting for in-house teams? How do you differentiate your forecasts, or how do you prioritize big brands to invest in SEO? Because I think one of the problems in the Australian market is a lot of big brands, they'll pump a couple of million a month into paid acquisition, but then the SEO budget might be 5 or 10K, you'll get a few scraps, that's the problem with investment in SEO. So how are you finding in the US market what's worked to push further investment into SEO? What strategies have you been utilizing over the years?
Yeah, I love that question. So I think it's a no-brainer if you frame it correctly. So there was a company I was working with where they determined that in order to unlock $10 million in SEO revenue, it was only going to cost $400,000. That's an investment anybody would take any day of the week. The problem is how do you frame that this is a huge channel? And I think that what's missing is it's never framed correctly. From an SEO standpoint, too many people in SEO pitch things as narrow and very focused on tactics, which is I'm going to do SEO and then this page is going to rank, or I'm going to do SEO and this keyword is going to rank, instead of I'm going to do SEO and I'm going to generate this amount of revenue. So to your question, James, it's very hard to convince people to do something they don't already want to do. I don't do outbound sales for my own consulting because I don't think it's effective. I don't think picking up the phone and saying to someone, hey, your SEO is not good. I mean, maybe some people do it, but for me, I don't find it's effective to say, hey, your SEO is not good, hire me, I'll make it good. They have other things that they're working on. They're not really going to change their roadmap. However, what I find to be effective and that brings in people to have these conversations is different motivations. One of those motivations is jealousy. So they'll look at their competitor and say, my competition is driving a significant amount of revenue from this channel, and I have no idea how to do the same. That motivates them to really think about how do you build a strategy. And then from my own consulting perspective and the way I'm approaching SEO, typically they're not getting the right answers from an agency or their own team. So they'll go to their own team and say, hey, I'm looking at my competitors and it seems like they drive $100 million a year in revenue. Or maybe they went to a conference and they heard their competitors say SEO is killing it for us. We're driving $100 million a year in revenue. And they come back to their team and say, I don't think we do that much revenue. Can you explain to me how much revenue we're doing? And they can't. Or they say, well, how do I get there? And they say things like, well, I'm going to pump out 60 more pieces of content. And then the executive will say, well, 60 more pieces of content going to be $100 million? Obviously, the answer is no, right? So I think the question is are the companies in Australia, are they noticing what the competitors are doing? Are they feeling jealous enough that they want to build that? There is so much demand. I mean, look at Amazon. They're driving billions of dollars just from the SEO channel. There's so many companies drive all that revenue from the SEO channel. If a company wants to replicate that, that's when they have to work with SEO experts. If they don't, then you can't force them to want to.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. I think looking at like what competitors are doing, people always get motivated by the competition and things like that. And if they're doing very well, then they want to invest more. But on that note, how do you prioritize like changes for enterprise companies? Like, say for example, you want to push through a set of SEO changes, but the in-house team they're held back by like regs, you know, like regulatory and legal, and then you got a UX team who's like, no, I don't want to make these SEO changes, and I don't want to like deploy changes onto the site. How have you mitigated questions and conversations like that in the past? Because I know that's something that we come up with a lot of the time when we're dealing with these enterprise companies. We've got to sell in the changes, you know, like we've got to show the benefit. You got to forecast what the estimated impact of this is going to be, but then you still have those roadblocks where you got these in-house teams that are reluctant to change, you know.
So I personally love that. I know most SEO consultants don't love that, and most SEO, in-house SEO people don't love that. The more roadblocks you have to change, the harder it is to actually get there, and you can get there. And when you get there, it's a journey that you've really accomplished something. So those are the things that I really discuss in my book, which is how do you bring everyone on board? So there are companies I work with, and they're later stage, larger companies where they have all those roadblocks. The legal person doesn't want things to change because they're afraid that their perspective, if you put it in a keyword, changes what they're doing. The UX person, they just want to demonstrate that they're very important, so they just stand in your way. The engineer read a book called SEO for Dummies, and they know better than you. Like all those things, those are all the realities. So you have a job, you're being paid to do your job. You can't just throw up your hands and say, well, you guys aren't going to do it. We're not going to accomplish anything. So you thread the needle. You go to the legal person and say, what are you comfortable doing? And going back and forth and really massaging all that and getting to an end goal. There was a company I was working with that took them 6 months to make a single change in the title tag. But when we made the change in the title tag, obviously it's a big company because they have that many roadblocks. But when we made that change, it was quite meaningful. And I felt very accomplished by being able to make that change. And I never would have felt that accomplished if someone would have said like, hey, you log into WordPress and just change it, right? So those are big deals. And when you get to that big deal, it is, again, a much harder marathon to complete. And I love all being able to pull all those people together and make it all work, because it has to work. And you look at the companies that fail at this, it's because they can't make it work. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Walmart here in the US. I know that you're familiar with it as a big company. I don't know if anybody's ever shopped there or used their website. Walmart was always the largest retailer in America. They're still the largest retailer in America. If anybody could have competed against Amazon, it was always Walmart, except Walmart lost SEO because of the bureaucracy. They couldn't figure out how to get around the things that Amazon could, and they lost it. Whereas now, if you do an e-commerce search, you're always going to find Amazon, but you're not necessarily always going to find Walmart. And that's that bureaucracy again. There was a moment in time where Walmart could have actually beaten Amazon. And that moment was when Walmart partnered with Google, and they had this Google Shopping Express where you could go to your Google devices and talk to Google and say, order something for me, and it would come from Walmart. If there was any partnership that could have taken off Amazon, it was that. But neither of them could actually figure out how to get through the bureaucracy, both on the Google side and on the Walmart side. So getting through the bureaucracy is how you win. If it's not a big enough challenge and anybody can do it, then it's not a big enough challenge and anybody can do it. But if it's a really big challenge and you can figure out how to accomplish this and get through all those roadblocks, there's a huge pot of gold at the end of that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good point. But I mean, going back to implementing changes, how you mentioned title tag, do you recommend starting small for like an enterprise company? If they can't make on-page changes, then you say, look, let's start with a title tag and get some small wins there. And when we can start small with like title tags and basic elements, then you can kind of hopefully push into like more further on-page changes and like IA and stuff like that. Is that kind of how you've had success with like small incremental changes?
Yeah, so it's really a game to me of soft skills and diplomacy. And if you're coming into a company and you're able to make those big changes, then by all means make those big changes. But if it's a company where they don't trust SEO and they don't trust the team, they don't trust the consultant, they don't trust someone, you get those small changes and you show them what you got out of that. Now, here's the thing that I think many SEO, whether they're internal or external experts, don't get, which is you always have political capital. And if you waste that political capital on dumb things, it's gone forever. So as an example, and this is my personal pet peeve, there is so many people within SEO that talk about CWV, page speed, whatever Google's latest way of referring to it as, and they'll devote so much time to it. Even so, like, there was a company I was consulting with, they had a big agency tell them that their site was too slow and they need to make the site faster. To do so would have cost them millions of dollars. They would have had to get a data set, another data set. Now, they would have done it. They were willing to trust that agency to do it, but there was never going to be an upside. I've rarely ever seen anybody be able to prove that there was an upside just for SEO. Maybe there's an upside for conversion. Maybe there's an upside in UX experiences, but not an upside in I'm ranking better, I'm converting better just from SEO. So you do something like that, you get the whole team on board to make the site faster, and then they say, hey, we spent all this money. What are the results? And you don't have anything to show for it. Next time you ask them to do something big, you don't have that capital anymore. So like you said, James, you start small, you do a title tag. This will only take a couple of minutes. I'll do it and then I'll show you it worked. And that gives you more capital to do that next change. Don't go in after the biggest thing and say, you know what, your blog is on a separate domain. I want you to move that blog into your core domain. That's expensive. That's complicated. That's migrating things. It may or may not work. Don't stake your entire reputation on that. Really find something that you could do small, earn your reputation and earn the right to say, you know what, it was a guess, it didn't work for me, but the next one will work. But if that's your first move fails, you lost all your reputation, you lost all your credibility.
Agree. I think you've definitely got to prove value, small incremental wins. I agree 100% with the core web vitals optimizations. You see some agencies saying that if you don't optimize for core web vitals, like your website's going to tank, but it's based off nothing. They're just making up stuff from a sales point of view. And when you deal with enterprise companies that are using like AEM as their CMS, and it's going to cost too much to implement these silly changes, you can start with basic things if you want to optimize for speed, like tracking tag bloat. You see sites with 100 tracking tags and 50 of them they're not using anymore. There's easy wins like that. So I agree. You have to be smart with the prioritization, and you don't want to invest all your eggs in one basket, and then it's not gonna be prosperous in the end of the day for the business. I mean, on that note, what do you think the biggest risks for SEO are? Is it AI content indexing issues? Is it some people say TikTok search, but I don't think we've got to worry about that. But like, what do you think is a risk for SEO in the future?
I don't see any real risks for SEO as a whole in the future. I see massive risks for SEO people in the future. And the challenge for SEO in the future is that it's always going to be changing.
Hmm.
TikTok is not going to take over Google. TikTok is
Yeah.
not the same experience as Google. You don't look for restaurant menus on TikTok. You look for TikTok for content, for entertaining content. You want to know places to travel, but you're not going to, you travel somewhere, you want to know the rules on visas, or I don't know whether you need a COVID vaccine or not. TikTok's not going to answer that for you. So I don't think TikTok itself will take over search. I don't think AI content is going to take over search. For anybody here that's been doing SEO for a really long time, so I mentioned that I started my career in the darker arts. There was a WordPress plugin called Caffeinated Content, and what Caffeinated Content did was you put in your keyword, like your primary keyword. It figured out the synonyms of the keyword, and then you gave it some RSS feeds, and it vacuumed up content from these RSS feeds, and then it put the keyword and synonyms of your keyword in there, and it made the absolute most atrocious, disgusting content, but it worked because Google wasn't that smart then. That was basically the 15-year-old version of AI content. So we're doing better, and we're using machines to write content. But at the end of the day, it's the humans that buy the things that we want. So maybe you can convince Google that you've phoned it in and you have content on your website. When a user arrives on your website, if it's lacking that emotion, if it's lacking the details that a human wants, then you're not going to sell them. And then if you're in a space where AI content's the whole game, so then you shouldn't be there. There's not really an SEO play there. So I don't think in the places where we really do SEO, AI content's going to solve all the problems. Now, let's say you're in I think AI content is fairly successful in certain like sports, anything that requires programmatic data. I want to know the score of the game. I want to know who kicked to who. I want to know those things. Yes, AI content can work. You want to know how the stock market performs, AI content can work. But if you want someone to buy something, you want someone to click something, you want someone to send over a lot of money, AI content is lacking. So it's like anything when it comes to marketing. You could phone it in and just send spam emails and wait for your phone to ring. Yes, some of that spam is going to work, but that's not marketing. So I'm not as concerned by AI content either. Yes, it's a tool, but it's not going to take over anything. The biggest risk really to SEO is I think there's a lack of talent in this space. And
Hmm.
the reason for this lack of talent is because, exactly like you said earlier, James, people run into this wall where they're not accomplishing enough and they move away from it. They want to go somewhere that's more accomplishing and more challenging, and somewhere where they can, again, do better things for the bottom line. But I think there's a way out here. I think if SEO, whoever's doing SEO can see how meaningful their job is and really navigate all these challenges, they can add so much to the bottom line. Like I said, at SurveyMonkey, we were doing $200 million a year from SEO. That was more than any other channel, but it took a really long time to explain that. And then once you can explain that, you get a lot of buy-in. So everywhere that you have all those challenges, all that bureaucracy, that's huge. There's opportunity there to navigate it rather than to say, well, I'm just going to keep getting relegated to the basement. I don't want to do this anymore. I'll go be a product manager. I'll go do something else completely. No, there is opportunity here. And, whenever I've done these surveys or, done research on LinkedIn, there's so many people in the earlier part of their career doing SEO, 1 to 5 years. But after 5 years, you don't have so many. And I think that, again, that's a risk that I would point out about SEOs. you don't have enough people sticking around. So you don't have enough people really developing their skills in this space, and more than skills, the authority to say this is how it works, and I can be, successful in this space.
I agree. I think like I've been in the SEO space since like 2005. So yeah, I mean, like I remember back in the early days, like AMR, like article marketing robot, and like people were using all sorts of shenanigans. And I think the biggest problem that I see is a lot of people are lazy. They don't want to bring new talent into the industry. They don't want to train people up. A lot of people, they just can't be bothered training people. They just don't have the time. That's one big thing I've seen in the Australian market. Like, I mean, I started this business over 10 years ago, and we've had some very successful alumni and people that have worked here. So we've done a lot for the Australian SEO community, like especially in Sydney. So I feel like, but I see a lot of competitors are lazy, they don't want to train up people. They don't want to give someone an opportunity. They don't trust someone that started an affiliate site and then wants to move into an agency. There's a big lack of people giving opportunities too, I feel. And I don't know if it's the same in the US, but I feel like that's another big problem as well, is the lack of opportunity. And yeah, and I agree, people as they develop in their careers, they can move out of SEO into like product management or like head of digital or something like that, VP of marketing, they there's not a lot of people that stick around for long term, but it can be lucrative for people to stick around too. So I think it's a combination. It's people giving people a chance, getting them into the industry. It's also like people don't understand what SEO is. Unis aren't talking about it. Like colleges probably aren't talking about it. People that finish and they have a good skill set, they don't know what job they want to do. Because I notice that when we hire like someone new to the industry, we'll put a job ad up for like an SEO graduate, and you get 20 applications, but then you put an ad up for like content marketing graduate, you get 300 applications. So I think there's a lack of knowledge. There's a whole bunch of contributing factors, but no, I think SEO it's a good career. Like I think like you don't want to be like an accountant, because there's millions of accountants out there, and it's like my wife. She's a dentist, and she paid 120K to go to uni or something, and then when she finished, it was hard for her to get a job. But you can become an SEO and you can probably get a job easier. So there's a few different factors in there.
Yeah, totally. The opportunity. I really think that when people understand the opportunity here, it's huge. I mean, if you can articulate to a company how much value they could drive out of SEO, they're willing to pay for that, both for on an agency side and on a salary side. And I think not enough of that's being articulated to companies. There are not enough companies that really understand how big this opportunity is, that they should be willing to pay for the right talent, and you keep the right people around when they realize, again, how much upside there is from this channel.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, what do you think is going to happen with SEO in the next 10 years? Like, do you think we're going to see SEO in like more for different platforms? Like I feel like more people want to do like SEO within Amazon, or it could be even SEO within Walmart, or even in Australia, people are starting to talk about, I want to optimize for like Coles and Woolworths and even like delivery apps. And then they're thinking about SEO for these other channels, and I feel like we're getting a lot more people asking about that type of stuff. I don't know what you're seeing in the US, but what do you feel about SEO for other channels? I mean, it could just fall under optimization as well.
Yeah, so that's the thing I'm trying to change with my approach to product-led SEO, which is I think SEO should be in product and not marketing. So when you're in product and your focus is on building something good for users that will arrive from this channel, it doesn't really matter whether it's Google or what do you got there? The sort of the Deliveroo, right? It doesn't matter what these channels are. This is someone that's using something to find something. They're using an engine to find something, and we're optimizing for that channel. So again, it doesn't matter whether it's TikTok. If TikTok comes out with text search and it's the same as Google, you're optimizing for that channel. So that's the way I think it needs to be thought about. Instead of I'm a Google SEO expert and then Google goes away, so you're no longer Google. Well, you can, but no one needs you anymore. It's really you're optimizing for this specific kind of marketing channel, which is someone doing a pull effort, right? I'm looking for something. I'm looking to find something. and does, again, platform agnostic. And I think it has to come from a product perspective. You're a product manager building something around what people are looking for, again, rather than just marketing of, oh, this is, I'm marketing the thing that someone else created, because I don't think SEO is successful that way. You don't want, if there is no market, if there's no one is searching for your product, like for example, I don't do a lot of SEO consulting for B2B companies, because in many cases for B2B, the market is not using search. They're using other channels to discover it. So you could do all of the search efforts you want, and you're not going to get any conversions because there's no market there. So that's what I think SEO should become in the future. It should become more product specific, part of a product team building around, that channel of acquiring users from search, whatever that search engine is.
Yeah, I agree. I think like the times we've seen SEO sit within product and like development teams, I feel like it's prioritized quickly when you get like head of engineering on a call or something like that and they understand the value of SEO. I feel like when SEO sits within a marketing team, sometimes it can be delayed because they're dealing with so many other channels that can provide quicker ROI to like a CFO or CMO. They can kind of divert budget quickly, and then SEO is more of a longer term play, so it can be a harder sell from a marketing point of view. But I agree, when it does sit within product, it in my experience, when we've worked with those type of organizations where they have, you get on a call with the head of engineering or they're involved with the engineering team, even like we've done some big jobs where you'll do like a tech audit and you'll present some findings and things like that, and then they'll actually have SEO developers at the company that are solely working on SEO changes, and then within a couple of days, everything's changed, and then when you talk to these other companies that don't have that time for SEO changes, they say, oh, we can get these changes done in a couple of months. We've got a lot of other pressing issues for coming up in our Jira tickets or like things like that. So that's another big thing that I've seen over the years.
Yeah, I mean, what I find that when SEO sits under marketing, they just don't have enough tools for them to grow the company and grow the channel. So when they sit under marketing, they file, like you said, they file Jira tickets. They maybe collaborate with other marketers. They collaborate maybe with a content person, maybe with a designer. But when you are on a product team, that is when you can dictate to engineers what they could be doing. That is when you could dictate to the UX designer that you need this done for the product you've created. If you're in SEO, you don't always have the luxury of deciding who your boss is. But regardless, you can think like a product manager and try to get buy-in to think like a product manager, even if your boss is in marketing.
Yeah, that's a good point. I saw something you posted on Twitter the other day. You said your hairdresser was paying someone $1,000 a month for SEO, and they didn't know what they were doing. And I mean, off the back of that, who shouldn't be doing SEO? I know you said earlier some B2B companies, maybe it's not right for them to do SEO, but what other type of businesses do you think shouldn't do SEO? I know in your book you have a lot of points around people that don't have product market fit. SEO might not be right for them. Like it could also be a case of like startups with no money. I don't think a lot of like we get a lot of calls and someone's just trying to start a business. And I'm like, I wouldn't like, you got to think about the basic elements of SEO, but sometimes they don't have the budget to do SEO correctly. And that's another thing I feel like people can kind of nickel and dime SEO. They don't have budget to do a correct campaign, like build out a correct strategy. They'll just say, oh, I've got $500 a month, and then they'll just go onto Upwork and God knows what they're going to get. Their site's going to get blasted with some spammy links and shitty content. What's your thoughts on that?
So I think what not enough people do when it comes to SEO is really think about the funnel. So when you think about the funnel, you really want to get into the mindset of a user and say, how is a user going to find this product? So a user is going to find this product because she asks her friend. A user is going to find this product because she clicked an ad on Facebook. A user is going to find this product because he had a specific need and he Googled for it. So you really want to get into the mindset and deeply, deeply understand the funnel. And whenever I talk to potential clients or anybody asking about SEO, that's what I like to understand. How is it that you're acquiring users, or how do you think you're going to acquire users? And only then can you decide on the channels that you want to use. So World Cup is coming up next week. Who should be advertising on the backs of jerseys in the World Cup? Well, people should be advertising the backs of jerseys on the World Cup if their users are going to be watching the games and they might be prompted to now have a different awareness of the brand and they might buy from that brand. But if seeing a logo on the World Cup or, on jersey or any on TV doesn't even resonate with you, that would be a total waste of money. And I approach SEO from the same way. If there's no way a user would be using search to find you, then why would you invest it all in this channel? So I'll give you two examples. One is there was a company I was talking to. They make innovative things for landscapers. And they were very interested in building SEO because they were tired of spending a ton of money acquiring landscapers. I asked them how they acquired all the customers they had to date. And they told me that they had a booth. They went to trade shows, they had a booth, and that's how they got all the gardeners and landscapers. So I asked them why they would consider doing SEO if their users are not there. They're not going on to search and saying, I need a new product to help me do with my landscape business. They're going to trade shows to understand them better. So SEO might help. They could find their brand at the trade show when they find out about them, but this is not an acquisition channel. So that's the kind of company I would not suggest do SEO. It's a fairly large company, not a startup, but their users are clearly not online. I mean, maybe they have some, but it's not an investment channel. If they were to spend $10,000 in SEO and get very little for it, they would be better off taking that $10,000 and getting another booth at another trade show to get a lot more leads. Another company I talked to, they had an innovation in the birth control space. They had a lot of funding from a lot of different VCs, and there's birth control is something that people search online. However, no one was looking for their innovation. So if the demand doesn't exist, if it's not a part of that funnel, again, you don't invest in that channel. Only once you've created the awareness around people looking for it and searching and then going to find it, does it make sense to have search? So in general, B2B is one I find that falls into that bucket, but there are many examples of companies that I don't think should be doing SEO because SEO is not a part of that funnel. And the only way you can decide that is by really brainstorming or understanding the funnel. And the hairdresser I was talking about, I don't think she should be doing SEO because the kind of SEO she was doing is spammy agency doing this, writing articles about hairstyles. No one Googles articles about hairstyles in the neighborhood she's in and then decides to go to that barber. That's not the way it works. They're doctors. You mentioned your wife's a dentist. A lot of dentist websites, what they do is they have this content and they write content about the keywords that dentists have, like toothbrushes and fillings and crowns and pain and all that. But it's to the entire world. Everyone that speaks English is looking for those words, whereas a dentist is in a very specific area. So 99% of the people that are even going to find that content, if they find that content, aren't potential users. So again, like my hairdresser, she's writing all this content that doesn't help her with SEO. What helps her with SEO is doing a great job for her users and getting good ratings on Google My Business. So then she ranks higher in the neighborhood and people want to go and call her and stop in at the shop. So that's the way I think of who should and shouldn't be doing SEO. Is SEO a part of your funnel? If it's not, put the money elsewhere.
Yeah, that's very true. I think just another thing back to something you said about like jersey advertising, and another point I wanted to add there, like what are your thoughts around like above the line marketing, like TV ads, radio ads, where you're driving people from TV or radio to search, where you see these ads where people are like search for I don't know, like blah blah, like auto insurance. Do you feel like that can have a positive impact on SEO? I know that's like one area with enterprise companies you sometimes see people ask, like what's the impact of above the line marketing on SEO? Like, what are your thoughts on that? It's similar to the World Cup, like if people see Brazil and then they've got like a, I don't know, like a website on the back of their jersey, like lastminute.com or whatever. And then people see that and then they're all over the news and they win, like what are your thoughts on the correlation between above the line and SEO?
Yeah, so again, I don't think enough people really think about the entire funnel and then of acquiring customers. If you think about the entire funnel of acquiring customers, then you realize where SEO fits in that funnel. So again, if you think about this, you take credit for what you've done and you don't take credit for what you've not done. So say you really don't think about the funnel and all of a sudden your company advertises on jerseys in the World Cup, you're actually going to see a ton of SEO traffic. So unless you acknowledge that you're seeing a ton of SEO traffic because of that other team's efforts, then when the reverse happens, when the reverse seasonality happens, you're on the line again. I don't know if you guys are about to experience a recession or depression like we are having here in the US, but the economy is getting worse, which means people buy less, and that means that there's less demand. So search will decline, not because there's anything wrong with the actual SEO visibility. It's because less people are searching, because there's less disposable income, because the economy is worse. So you don't take credit for things on the way up. You definitely don't, and then you don't get on the hook for it when on the way down. So I think of SEO as a part of a funnel. Like I said earlier, for that innovative birth control product, people aren't aware of it. Once you create awareness, then eventually people might search for it. So that's where I think of TV advertising as a part of it. If a company does not have any awareness, they do TV advertising. They create the awareness about what their product does or the name of their brand, and then SEO can catch that, even if it's just brand on SEO. And I do believe all SEO teams should take credit for brand search. I don't think enough teams do that, but you want to catch all that brand search by doing good SEO. There was a company I was working with in the crypto space, and they thought they were doing fantastic SEO last year, but this year they're not doing fantastic SEO. Not at all the case, right? They were doing a good job of being visible when crypto is interesting, and they're still doing a good job of being visible when crypto is disinteresting. It doesn't matter. So again, SEO is a part of the funnel. It's usually mid-funnel, not bottom of the funnel. Again, part of that funnel explanation when you talk to potential clients is it's mid-funnel. And if you have this, if you can explain it's mid-funnel, it's helping people get to the bottom of the funnel, then maybe clients won't have this expectation that you need to convert, which is again a challenge with SEO. I did all this SEO, but I don't make any money. No one's converting. Well, it's mid-funnel. What SEO does is it convinces them to maybe think about adding to cart, or maybe to join the email list, and eventually they'll convert. But can't be expected on many products, unless it's e-commerce, to just find something and buy. Bottom of the funnel is maybe advertising, definitely paid marketing, certainly retargeting. And then, like you said, TV advertising is top of the funnel. It's very high up there, creating awareness. And SEO is just a part of the funnel. Again, I don't think enough SEO teams think about where SEO fits in the funnel, nor do I even think they think about funnel. But SEO fits in a funnel. So when you manage expectations, you explain that. I'm here to catch what the top of the funnel does. And I'm also here to bring things to lower in the funnel. There is no competition. I've been in companies where paid marketing competed with SEO. That makes no sense. They're at a different place in the funnel. By collaborating, everyone wins.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think a lot of PPC teams don't collaborate with SEO, and there isn't a lot of analysis of like cannibalization of queries, like looking at things like where no one else is bidding, and if SEO can be a cost saving mechanism, and especially see like I've seen brands spend millions of dollars on brand bidding, in the past, and then no one else is bidding on their brand, So sometimes it makes sense to do that, but then people from the paid side say, "Oh, we're running offers on our paid, and we can get the offer out quickly." But I don't know. That's gone down a rabbit hole on like paid and SEO, but that's definitely something I've discussed a lot in the past. But on that note, I want to hand it over to the team because I know a few people have got questions for you. Some people from the team have read the book. So yeah, I'll let everyone ask questions. Who's got a question for Eli?
Yeah, I'll ask one. Just coming back to how you bring all like upper management or legal together, do you have any insights or tips into conveying like the journey you've made to get those changes made to upper management? Because like, for example, changing a title tag could be a massive win, months of work, but to someone in upper management, it's changing 5 words on a page. Do you have any kind of insight into how we could convey that clearly?
That's a great question. I think that if there's 2 ways to answer it. So I'll answer it in the in-house way, and then I'll try to change it to the agency way. So the in-house way is you want to keep them up to date throughout the entire journey. So you're sending I'm a big believer in communication. And this, again, I probably only works for in-house. So I would write emails every Friday or every Monday, which says, hey, here's what the SEO team's up to. but I always at the top of it put like the only things they're going to care about. Like, this is how much money we made, and these are the big initiatives we're working on. But I continue to flag and say like, hey, we've made progress towards it. And then it's just how you frame it. So after 6-month effort, we finally updated the title tag, and we'll check back in 2 weeks. So you've really put that in the same sentence, not like title tag updated. It's really title tag updated after 6 months. The agency way is a little different because you're not communicating the same. So what I would do is you could say, when you update them on the title tag, say, hey, that we just want to let you know the title tag has been updated. This was a little bit of a complicated process. It took us 6 months. Do you have any advice on how we could streamline this better for the next time? So now, again, you bunch those two things together and they can understand how complicated it was. So in their mind, hopefully they'll equate not, oh, you made a change of 5 words. They'll equate, you've made effort for 6 months to accomplished 5 words. Does that help? But again, it's very different. And again, I know you guys are agency. I think when you're in-house, things are very, very different than when you're agency. When you're agency, unfortunately, you're always the fall person for it. Like, oh, the agency screwed up, so we'll just fire them. But it doesn't work the same way in-house. So when you're agency, you always want to point out how valuable you are and how you've done things that they couldn't have done without you.
Yeah, for sure. I think the point of kind of asking them how to change the workflow in the future is a good way to get them thinking about it and all of the effort involved.
Another thing you do is, and I've done this again because I'm sort of agency and in-house, you check in with them and say, I'm having some issues getting this title tag changed. Would you be open to joining this meeting to help really grease the wheels here? Or who could I talk to? And now they know it's a continuous process, so they're aware that it's taking a long time.
Yeah, nice.
I got a question off the back of that, but more from like a results perspective. So you're talking about like SurveyMonkey took a fair amount of time for the results to come in. And I was wondering, what like kind of strategies do you have to keep the client engaged in the SEO process when the results aren't really coming in that initial period?
That's a huge challenge, I think, for anyone in SEO. There are clients that I've worked with that fired me before they got their results. And then once the results came in, like I was long gone, but they did so well off those results. So I think it's an iterative process for anyone that is an agency or consulting. We're always going to be at the whims of the clients being like, oh, I'm tired of spending money on this, but you're really building upfront effort, which takes a long time to pay off. You know, I know like on social media, how long does SEO take? I don't know, some people say it takes 2 weeks. I think it takes like 18 months, right, to really show something meaningful. So that's where, again, I'm not a big fan of this. I'm not a big fan of content marketing and just, throwing keywords together and putting blog posts out there. But you can keep the client engaged by showing them, hey, we published this piece of content and we're getting this amount of traffic. But really, the big piece of the pie that you're going after is that programmatic, that big product thing that is going to take 18 months. So you just find some low-hanging fruit that you can do along the way to keep pointing out that stuff is happening. But I'm with you there. It's a huge challenge for me. Like, I look in the past at some of the clients that I still have the Google Search Console, and I'm like, can't believe they fired me when now what I did contributed to 3/4 of the traffic they have today.
Yeah, it's definitely a frustrating part, I think, in my client management, is just trying to communicate that SEO takes time, but really they just want like upfront value straight away.
I mean, part of it is really managing expectations at the outset and telling them it's going to take 18 months. And the way you can sell that is the longer it takes, like if they're actually doing the work. If they're not doing the work, it's a different story. But the longer it takes, the bigger moat they're building. So if it takes them 18 months to get to this finish line, then at 18 months, their competitors are going to turn around and say, wow, look at this company, look what they did. I want to copy them. You're 18 months ahead. Interesting fact I found out recently. So you guys all know Fool.com. So big finance site. They publish 120 pieces of content per day. Now, I don't think a lot of that content's good. I think it's a lot of AI content, but it's 120 pieces of content per day. They're a 20-year-old website. So if you would like to beat Fool.com at what they're doing, you need to catch up 20 years and outpace their 120 pieces of content per day. So that's something you could do as a part of the sales process, which is not actual agency sales, but like process sales when you're doing the work, and say, yes, this is taking a long time, but the longer this takes, the more effort we put into it, the better head start and the better permanent moat we have that no one can catch us. You know, I mentioned Amazon earlier. Amazon's got the best moat ever. No one can catch Amazon on straight e-commerce ever, because like they've been dominating for so long. You would not only have to be better than them, you would also have to catch up to them. So that's the thing. Like, again, sell that to the clients and say, this is a long process, but we want this to be a long process. If it took us, you know, an hour to do this, then a competitor can look at this and take an hour or two. One thing that I think is always, you know, done that SEO consultants do, and you know, in-house SEO does, is they use tools like SEMrush and Ahrefs, and they look at the content gap. And they say, this is our strategy. We're going to look at our competitors and we're going to take our content gap and we're going to fill that gap. Well, anybody that also has the same access to the same tool can also fill that content gap. If that's your entire strategy, easy to copy. You need to have way more than that. So your strategy should be as complex as possible, which involves, like I said earlier, all those pieces. I have to navigate legal, I have to navigate UX. The more complicated it is, the harder it is to catch up.
Yeah, it's an interesting take. Thanks.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you, Eli, I know in your book you talk a lot about, you know, finding blue ocean strategies, and that's kind of the underlying factor when it comes to, or one of them when it comes to product-led SEO. You talk a lot to, you know, the value of interviewing customers to find those opportunities, but would you have any other insights into some of the strategies you're using to find those blue ocean opportunities? And would they differ between an in-house SEO person looking to leverage some of those opportunities compared to agency side?
So blue ocean is very complicated because it's like developing businesses out of thin air. So it's hard to really, like, you don't want to be like, oh, I was just walking down the street and I came up with an amazing business idea and this is going to be $1 billion. Like, I'm creating the new Twitter, right? Like, if it was that easy, everyone would be creating, you know, $1 billion ideas every minute. But I think this is another thing marketers, not just SEO, doesn't do well enough, which is they don't have enough customer empathy. They don't really put themselves into the shoes of customers to understand how customers are even going to use things. So the best advice I would have to get to blue ocean is to get the customer empathy. And that's why I like the surveys. I like interviewing customers. Be a user of the product. And being a user of the product, you can identify gaps in where you could potentially be creating things. And, you know, you can exercise that muscle in everything you use every day. Like, what if you know, we're on Zoom. Like, what would you have to do to come up with a blue ocean strategy for Zoom to do SEO? So we're using it and we think about all the things that Zoom could do and how would you create marketing out of it? So if you're, the way Zoom does their SEO is like, you know, web conferencing, webinars, and you know, video conferencing, just typical keywords. But what could you do as a user because you are a user to think of a different way that it would appeal to you? Like, you know, like, well, I use Zoom to connect with my grandmother. Like, what if I made Zoom about family connections and I showed all the way that Zoom could help me do things? Again, that's your blue ocean. So again, there's no short answer because it shouldn't be a short answer. It's a business strategy, but it's really, again, I think most marketers don't do this well enough, which is have customer empathy. Can't tell you how many times I've been with B2B, you know, marketers and discovered that they don't actually use their own tools. Like, they're narrating something for salespeople, but they don't even have a login to the tool. Or like, it's a social media platform, but they don't really use social media like that. You have to get into the minds of your users as much as possible. There was a company I was working with. They were very focused on the Gen Z market, but everybody was old. So like, if you want to get into the minds of Gen Z, you need some Gen Z people to talk to you. Like, you can't fake it out. So that would be my best advice, is try to be the customer and hopefully you'll find those insights.
Definitely, I agree. I think there's value to take away from that when it comes to technical SEO as well. You know, everyone has checklists and so forth, and you can run through that. But some of the major opportunities you find is when you spend an hour or two exploring the website and really going through and taking it from a user standpoint. And I think that's a way that you can find opportunities that will allow you to really leverage benefit out of SEO. So there's some similarities there for sure. Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so true. I think like one thing we've been doing recently is like for a lot of clients, it's like just buying their products, you know? Like we have a big insurance client and the other day I was on their website to buy a policy and then I found a bug with the freaking policy. I couldn't even buy a business car policy through their website. And then I sent it to the guy and I was like, look, like I on your website, this is probably costing you a lot of money right now. But then I tried the exact same thing on two competitors and it worked fine. So the guy was like, please send me screenshots of all this. I'm going to send it to the product team straight away. You know, and we've been slowly doing that for a lot of our clients, you know. So we mainly target mid to large businesses for SEO and we try to use their services, you know, whether it be buy something on the website, go and do one of their experiences for our Christmas event. We're going to one of our clients and like we're spending a bunch of money with them and experiencing the client's business because it's a franchise kind of thing. And clients love that too, you know. It's like you're testing the product and you get a good understanding of how it works, and then it shows the client you're investing with them too, you know. You're not just there to take the marketing budget and not give back to the business, you know.
Yeah, I mean, again, I find it's missing with so many marketers that they just don't understand the customer. They don't understand the problem. And if you put that customer mindset on, you find all the gaps right away. Like, you know, even when it comes to small businesses, again, James, you're right, it's a dentist, like you're doing marketing for it. If you come at it from a business standpoint, you're like, oh, these are the keywords. This is the way I'm going to do it. But then you come at it from a customer standpoint, like, well, what would make someone want a dentist? Well, they don't really like their last dentist because their last dentist was mean. So suddenly you can pivot all your marketing around, this is a nice dentist. She's a friendly dentist. And that might not be a keyword, but that's actually a converting element. So put yourself in the customer's shoes and you'll find insights that you weren't looking at. And certainly as a marketer, you'll never find.
Yeah, unfortunately, she doesn't own her own practice. She's a government dentist for the Indigenous community in Australia. So she's like government employee, and she was a fly in fly out dentist for a bit, going to like regional communities and stuff. So I don't think she wants to start her own business. But everyone who's her dental friends are always like, oh, you should use James's company, and if you ever start one, and if you go to one of her events, all these random dentists start approaching you and asking questions. You know, I feel like they're very curious about marketing, you know, and no, it's one of those things, you know. I think there's opportunity in every sector, but it has to be relevant, you know, it has to be for the user. And yeah, on that note, does anyone else have any final questions for Eli? I know we've only got 1 or 2 minutes left, so just jump in with like 1 or 2 more questions and then we better wrap things up.
Just a quick one for you, Eli. I know you mentioned that SEO is sort of a mid-funnel practice, and I found that very sort of interesting and insightful. But how do you go about navigating when, especially with some of these larger B2B clients, you're finding that the expectation is for you to provide the acquisition element rather than, you know, pushing them further down the funnel?
So it's really this customer empathy thing. It's the same. So like if you would walk through this idea with them, and I do this mostly on calls with leads, which is say like, how are they finding you? Well, how do they know your product exists? Especially B2B is a bigger problem because you need that demand gen. How do they know this problem exists? There's so many cool B2B tools out there, but you didn't realize that you needed it. Like let's say Zoom. We didn't realize we needed Zoom until we were all kicked out of the office and had to go home. Zoom existed, you just weren't looking for it. So you have to walk through that funnel with them and then say, well, first they saw your ad on a jersey in the World Cup, and then they did this. And then you say, well, then they're going to Google it because they want to know if like, I don't know, what your cancellation policy is and all those. If you navigate it with them, I think they'll have a better understanding of where it's supposed to be, rather than I spent all this money and I'm not break even because you're not converting. But if you can explain, well, what I've done is I've got people to sign up to your email list and now your email list is converting. Where I got people to come to your website and now you're converting through retargeting. But they need that fundamental understanding of how it works and how their customer journey happens.
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. No, thanks for your time today, Eli. I know if anyone wants a copy of your book, Product Led SEO in Australia, I was reading it before, and it's actually manufactured in Sydney. They must print them locally too. So if anyone wants it, if anyone wants a copy in Australia, I thought it was crazy how it came like next day when we bought a bunch, and next day delivery. So that was really cool. So if anyone wants a copy, highly recommended for in-house teams, SEO people, or anyone that wants to just get involved in SEO and learn about it. I think it's so crucial. So yeah, thank you for putting it together, Eli. I think it's making a positive impact globally, not just in the US, in Australia. I'm seeing people talking about it, and yeah, hopefully you can come down to Australia soon and do a talk or something.
I'd love to. I've been there a couple times. I loved it. It's just very far away.
Well, I saw you're a friend of Matt Barry. I know he was sharing some photos of the books. Maybe you'll have to get Matt Barry to bring you out, or even if we run something, maybe we're gonna have to get some good speakers to come down.
I'd love to. Let me know.
All right. No, thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it. Yeah. I hope everyone goes out and buys your book, and we'll be doing a little giveaway on LinkedIn too, giving out some copies, and might even give a few copies to some clients too, because I feel like some clients would definitely appreciate it as well. So no, I really appreciate your time, and have a good day.
You too, guys. Have a good weekend and have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Eli.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eli.
Cheers, Eli.
Thank you.